Welcome to EIPIP Meeting 77. I have shared agenda in chat. The first item listed here is new contract interface, and EIP should be required to include a privacy consideration section. I believe we discussed this in the past. I should have mentioned it in the section 2, but recently it was requested by Victor to maybe have more discussion on that. Victor, if you would like to maybe quickly recap, and why do we want to have it here for discussion today?
Yeah, so I think last time I was not there. And the question here is that if we have something other than privacy consideration, where do they go? It seems like current status, current layout is quite rigid. I'm proposing that we have several options, either have a privacy section, independent ones, or have a other considerations by itself as a section as a fallback catch-all. So that's generally the idea.
All right. I don't see Sam on the call, but if I remember correctly, I guess he wasn't in favor of having a privacy consideration as a part of EIP. I wonder what are other thoughts that the presenter does today.
Yeah, I'd also rather not have this section. I thought we discussed this a couple calls ago, so I don't know why we're like rehashing old things.
My proposal is to have a other considerations as a catch-all.
I think the sections are adequate right now.
You mean other consideration is added now?
No, I'm saying the sections that we have currently are adequate at the moment.
So we know that it's on it's not all EIP need a consideration for privacy, but if someone needs a privacy consideration in some of the case, what's the best section to go in?
The security considerations.
That is what I felt not the right thing to do, because a lot of non-technical and people consider security the same as conflate security and privacy. And we as a standard body, especially in the crypto space, I felt that is not a good example to set up that we ask people to put privacy into security section.
I mean, ultimately, this is a blockchain and there's not much privacy at all. So I think that anytime there is a extraordinary scenario of breaches of privacy, this would fit perfectly in the security consideration section.
What do you think if we increasingly see incoming protocols or standards addressing ZK privacy preserving scenarios? In that case, do you still consider that as security space?
I mean, we'll see if that happens, but I don't think that most ZK protocols need to make EIPs about their ZK protocol and describe what the privacies are of their protocol.
So my question is, what is preventing us from having a other consideration as a fallback? What is the argument against that? Like, are we predicting that our section will never be needed, and then a first one that needs it will never appear?
I mean, for first, like, I don't want to have a section that's just extremely generic that people can use to mean privacy, that people can mean to use some other type of consideration.
Like,
so I don't think that having just a catch-all is a good idea. And second,
so
like, I don't think that we should be changing the EIP format right now. It's like something that again and again editors want to change this process, but it's not being requested really by users of the process. Whenever we start seeing tons of EIPs putting privacy considerations in the security section, and they're telling us this doesn't make that much sense, then we should consider changing it. But I don't think that this is a good idea to just keep proactively changing this process.
So this was from authors. This was a request from the authors, that's for one. And second, what are other possible considerations that you will
Caden
worry
Hartog.
people?
This person is involved in the EIP process. This person is involved in the IETF process. Yeah, he might also be an author, but it's, you know, something that somebody who's already involved in processes is trying to change.
Once upon a time, and not that long ago, people keep telling me things have changed, and I'm going, really has not been that long. Authors were allowed to put an appendix, possibly more than one appendix on a proposal. So there was a place to put things that were important to discuss, but did not exactly fit one of our predefined Procrustean backup. Do people know what a Procrustean bed is?
I personally
don't
don't
know.
remember a
Right.
time when we had an appendix, so I'm guessing it's been at least 2 or 3 years.
Gee, and that's like a century, right? It's a pretty common thing in documents to just let there be an appendix. It's, you know, other considerations, call it what you want, but it's an appendix. And then the author can lay out important material that doesn't fit our Procrustean bed. It was a Greek myth about somebody who ran a roadside something, and I forget all the details, but it was sort of this bed of nails, I think, that you had to lay in the bed, and if you didn't fit, you would be scrunched or scratched until you did fit. So somewhere in the format, it's good to have a small out rather than get a bad EIP where someone scrunched something into a section it didn't really belong in. And then later say, oh, well, we've got this stuff put in security systems. It really isn't a security issue. And now we have these bad EIPs. Whereas if we have, oh, some of our EIPs are showing up with appendices about privacy. And maybe we do need a privacy section. I didn't think we really did until I saw the long list of EIPs and particular considerations I hadn't thought of. So clearly there are EIPs for which there are privacy considerations. And for some of them, they actually are security as well. So yes, for the ZK stuff, a lot of it's all about maintaining privacy. And if they fail to maintain privacy in the ways that they're supposed to, it's a security problem. But it's not exactly the kind of security problem that we're usually dealing with. So it is confusing. I wouldn't mind a non-normative privacy section. I'm not quite sure where to go with that. And so I'm really happy to just say that, yes, there can be an appendix. But in general, when we put this process together just a few years ago, over and over, and I can't find the logs because we did it on Skype and it evaporated, but over and over, it was, these are strong suggestions. As the EIPs come in, we can loosen up the format for any given EIP to fit that EIP better. And that eliminates a whole bunch of arguments about changing the format in anticipation of stuff that hasn't happened yet. But anyway, I'm rambling.
Yeah. Thank you, Greg. And then I agree with Greg in that I've seen that VIP consideration comes up in some of the cases. I felt resonate with a lot of other editors that it's not generally needed, so I'm okay for it to be a standalone optional ones. I also paste in a Google search as well as in our Discord channel for you to see that ERCs and EIPs that has mentioned privacy in their text. Examples includes restrict Ethereum provider API injection for EIP for privacy consideration, APP keys and application-specific wallet contracts, including authored by Dan Finley, and also steals addresses. That is recently a topic as well. So this scenario has increasingly see that some of our EIP, especially ERC side, has changed some of the perspective about potential use case for privacy, for potential considerations about privacy. And one step back for me is that we as editors provide an format in order to make it more consistent and useful for the authors to use. But we are not there to dictate what information should be included and what information should not be included by the format itself. The format serves the purpose, and so that's why I'm arguing that a catch-all consideration could be useful to give authors more leeway, because I still carry a lot of memory when I'm authoring a lot. And the rigid format has make it very hard for us to provide the full information about this. Something like adoptions, existing adoptions are also considered, can be put in that other considerations.
Okay. I think, what I'm getting from the whole conversation is obviously there is a strong recommendation of having a section for other consideration at this point of time. However, people think that it would be a good idea to have a particular example in mind. Like if we are struggling with any proposal, if we have a proposal to be struggling with adding the information, I think that way it would be better for editors to weigh if we really need this thing, and making the policy change in advance that can be abused if not properly explained to people can be a threat. So what do you think, Victor, in this case, as we kind of are discussing that there could be a proposal, let's wait for a proposal to be like that and have it discussed maybe on issue section and then probably in the future meeting.
I shared in the Discord that there are more than 10 existing ones date back to ERC 1385, mentioning about privacy, and privacy is important consideration. I don't know what are other new ERCs, or are we just ignoring that this has been a need from EIP altogether back for such a long time.
So my biggest argument against this still is, can someone give me an example of a privacy concern that isn't also a security concern?
So privacy is usually depending on security. So when asking that question, it is very hard to kind of give you out of context answering. But it's important that we don't conflate them. That's why I think me and then a bunch of other authors thinking.
My argument is that all privacy concerns are a subset of security concerns and should be a subsection of the security consideration section. Yeah.
Okay, it's not that simple. That is, some cases on a blockchain, the fact that everything is visible is the whole point. It's not the check is in the mail, it's the transaction is on the blockchain, and there's no arguing about it. Everybody involved can look, and this is a feature. Other times it's a problem, and people are inventing technology to do a better job of that, and people are inventing whole blockchains and other technology that is much more and sometimes almost completely private. So it just seems for some EIPs, it actually is a security concern and needs to be handled there. And I think that would then show up in the motivation that that these privacy concerns are part of the point, and if they fail, it's a security issue. Then there's this middle ground where things have privacy implications that nobody thought about, but they really are important. And so an optional privacy section does, yes, motivate people to look at that in those cases where it matters. In other cases, it doesn't. Even the security section, sometimes, I just sort of scratch my head and go, there are no implications here except the usual ones of, there better not be bugs here. So I kind of go on circles on this. I see the points, but I just keep coming back to an appendix, a further discussion, not just an optional privacy, but just some sort of optional section that people can use for these sorts of things that come up that sometimes are important to only one EIP, but where people can put discussions of things that are important that don't fit our very rigid format. And really, the entire the IETF going all the way back, and the IETF was very much a model for what we were doing. Their formats are nothing like as rigid as what we're trying to do. There's just a lot more freedom given to the author to present their material in the way that the author and the working group believe is best. So if we're going to have such a rigid format, we need a little bit of out. If we feel that appendices should be forbidden, then something, just optional further discussion section, something like that. Privacy is just one such aspect that comes up.
I would love to have a less, rigid set of sections. I think that the way the IETF does it is, ideal in a lot of ways. The reality is that we have a lot of people who are able to and want to permissionlessly create EIPs. And so that ends up creating a lot of noise for people to, search through and try and edit. And if we were having the type of quality and the type of contributors that the IETF is having, I think that it would be okay. But we don't. And so
can we have an example of what could go horribly wrong when we have a fallback? Given currently we're very rigid in blocking links, what are other concerns that could be abused in this in this section? People can still put things in specification, right? Like they can put some random things there. What could
it's not just
be
about
worse?
abuse, it's also about frustration and fatigue of process change. Like at this point, I don't know, there isn't really anybody who still enjoys being a part of this process because of how much it changes under their feet. And just adding more and more things, like this is not, for the vast majority of people who need to create EIPs, it's not something that they're happy with.
I think people, so speaking of myself as an author, what I'm and other authors I see frustrated is adding restrictions. And I haven't heard any authors complaining about having more flexibility as what they complained. Maybe I don't have the historical context, and maybe editors will be very, very drained for new flexibilities, but I would love to hear what could be very bad in this case from an editor's perspective.
I mean, we've already gone over it. It's confusing. It should be part of the security considerations. It's not something that's super important for most EIPs and ERCs. So it just doesn't need to be a section. We don't need to change this aspect of it. And I feel like we just keep debating it and there's no progress, but it seems like Sam and I have both said that this probably doesn't need to be a section. We talked about it on another call and that was the outcome. We didn't feel like it should be a section. And I don't understand why we just every EIPIP call go over, rehash old arguments.
I think Greg and I are here today providing more of the author side of the feedback. And then our general concept idea is to have flexibility. And you mentioned that you want to have more flexibility. And I haven't heard, by the way, a argument about what this flexibility, more flexible section could help, could bring wrong with it. The only argument I currently heard is that we don't want change. I think Greg also answered already about the argument that privacy is not always security. Sometimes privacy, the features is just it's a feature. So sometimes it's a problem. They're just by security design, but it could have privacy implications. These are examples that why we feel that security section, considering section, is not enough. And I haven't heard about a counter argument about having other consideration or further discussions other than we are tired of seeing changes, and which I think
we've already gone into the other arguments. Like, it doesn't make sense as a separate section from Sam and I's point of view. It's something that should live under the security consideration section.
And I guess in that case is that
most EIPs don't need this section.
Well, what about having other considerations? Because just like diversity, not all of the EIPs need this particular consideration.
I don't think that other considerations make sense, because I don't think it makes sense to have just a catch-all section to put whatever authors want to put in.
Yeah, agreed.
Right.
I think
I strongly think authors need a little bit of an out. If you're going to have a really rigid format, it's instead people stuff into motivation and rationale that doesn't really belong there, but you got to put it somewhere, or else you wind up. Macaw's gone, unfortunately, but we went through this with a long-running EIP where the rules kept getting tighter, and so my EIP kept not, had to keep rewriting the EIP to meet the new rules.
Yeah, I mean, that's extremely frustrating, like having to update your EAP as the rules change. But, I mostly agree that we should have an out. I don't think we know how to do it properly. And I don't think that having a generic out called other considerations is the right approach. If we were to do an out, I would rather it be some sort of ad hoc situation where someone says, I need to have a top level section that says this, and we approve that as something that is added to the EIP. Right now, it doesn't feel like we have the manpower to actually make that happen. The way that we have this continuous integration set up, it's not easy. And we have a lot of junk just coming in from authors where they don't really care about the readability of their EIP. And so they'll just do whatever they feel like doing. So I just think that the rigid system we have is kind of the worst best thing that we've come up with right now.
For centuries in the publishing world, you have appendices. That's where you put stuff that doesn't, it doesn't fully fit the flow of the document. It's not the usual format.
I definitely don't think that privacy considerations should be something in an appendix. If it's important,
then it should be the main body.
If it's important to bring it up, it should be in the main
place. It's a place you put things that don't fit the current format.
But right now we use links
over time. To do that. Pardon?
I feel like we use link. We try to link to things that don't fit the format. Generally, in my experience, appendices have things like something that fits outside of the narrative of that document. So it might be, oh, you refer to some hash function. Here in the appendix, you can read exactly how that hash function is implemented, or something of that sort. And for that, we just use hyperlinks.
But our link, you can't link to almost anything. Where are you supposed to put what you linked to? Plus,
we have a process for adding links.
That's a fuck of a lot of work.
It is. I'm not saying that the process is great, but this is the process that we're kind of ended up at. And we can't just change it every 3 months.
No, it's easy to lose. Tightening it up is a pain. Relaxing a restriction that got put on
right
is easy. And
tell that to the people who manage all of the bots.
an optional further discussion section, just any sort of optional thing at the end where the author can put stuff. That
I strongly disagree with having a catch-all section, whatever its name is. I think if they're going to have additional sections that aren't part of the like ordained set, then they should be named and they should be specific to what the author is trying to convey.
And then
Well-
I think you're proposing that this section will be one-off exception, what ad hoc approved. If do I understand it correctly, Matt?
I'm saying I don't think that right now we have the ability to actually pull
Okay.
that off.
Okay.
I think we can.
I partly reacting to my experience of the death of 2315, which was probably the right decision, given that it motivated EOF, but was personally very painful. And part of the pain was that it appeared that a lot of people on that call, some of them had never read the EIP, and a lot of them apparently had read nothing but the EIP, despite the links to other things to do. So to the extent that you can't get everything important in the EIP, you're really making it difficult. We've got a hard link policy, and then a hard format, and then it's like, we'll put it somewhere else. But well, where do I put it that I can link to it? And will people bother following the link? If you have an appendix, you give it a name. You just say you can add some name sections at the end. I'm not seeing the huge objection here. I'm not seeing it creates a whole lot of extra work. I think it's easier to have a section at the end than to have people squeeze these things into sections they don't belong in. And then you're going, well, this isn't really motivation. This isn't really rationale. And then it's like, well, okay, but where do I put it?
Well, I think the opposite is probably the bigger problem, where you end up with motivation and rationale in this third section, and we have to tell people to move it into where it's supposed to be. But I mean, I guess I'm not as opposed to a generic section as I am to a privacy consideration section, but I don't want to give authors more freedom because like it's already hard enough keeping them consistent like as it is.
We're driving authors away because it's too much trouble.
Yeah.
So people wind up putting out pack MDs, and then it's like, will somebody please tell me where the latest hack MD is for this proposal? And it's like,
I mean, the people who have to make EIPs are going to continue making EIPs, and the people who don't have to make EIPs, it's a little bit harder for them to convert what they're trying to explain into the format. That's probably a win at this stage.
I think that's not the case. We have seen Nick Johnson move to EIP ENSIP. We have seen Fabian moving to use Loxco IPs without updating 725. We've seen
started this chain a long time ago. Like he's not involved with Ethereum really. ENS should not use EIPs to change its protocol.
We have seen Dan Finley and Rick Mall complaining about EIP process that make it very hard to draft EIPs. And giving people more freedom gives us more authors, basically. It's very hard there's always a spectrum of authors who are here to contribute to EIPs, who are not here to contribute, who have to do EIP here anyway. But as a standard body, I feel that we're here to serve the authors and not there to kind of think that how to make it only easier for the format. And that's why I'm proposing to give this more flexibility. And I do understand that you personally don't want to give to add this that other considerations, and Sam doesn't, and then Greg and I are in favor. I think we can we might not have consensus today, but we can see how the consensus can move forward. And obviously EIP is not only done by authors. I strongly believe that the major stakeholders are actually authors and adopters. So how about we summarize what our individual beliefs are, and then put it out there for authors and other stakeholders to come in. I don't think we should be dictators or dictator groups in this space. And if no one starts authoring EIP or adopting EIPs, then basically rendering EIP program worthless. So how do you like that we just put down what we believed so far and see if with other people's input can we kind of converge into consensus? And it's okay to take a longer discussion, maybe 3 months, a year from now, to see how this evolved into.
Sorry to interrupt here. I think we are completely moving into a different direction. We need to come back on the track so we can probably take a look onto the other issues or the topics that we are here to discuss. But just for this particular topic, it is obviously clear that we do not have a consensus. We do have four editors on call, and half of them are in favor and half of them are strongly not in favor. But the proposal, I mean, we do have option of appendices here. People are thinking of what can be in section that can probably provide authors this option to write this. But I believe when we are talking about standard, the flexibility should also have a limit to it. And we cannot say that we are like distracting authors, because the number of proposals every month we get is a way more than it was earlier, and the numbers of proposals that dies in stagnant status is like a really huge number. So we really do not have to have a lot of proposals just getting in for the purposes of editors to keep on reviewing with a lot of sections added. And if needed on case-to-case basis, this can be addressed. I would highly recommend discussing this issue further in the issue itself, because we do not have a clear consensus on this call. And any final comment anybody would like to suggest or say, just to wrap up on this topic so we can move ahead with the rest of the other discussion issues?
I better not start, or I'll go on for 10 more minutes.
Okay, in that case, let's move on to the next one. I think that is the best option to move on here. I think the next topic that we have is about customizable editors. It's proposed by EIPIP, and it's a proposal for enhancement. It says that in EIP review bot, currently there are predefined editors group depending on the type and category, and he is trying to propose a stopgap solution before implementing tags, that we have a slightly more customizable editor list for peer reviewers. Wonder what people think about it.
I don't understand what the goal is.
Yeah, same. I don't know what, like, if you don't have tags, how do you narrow down the list more? So that's why I posted my comment.
I think the next number, I mean, like the next, not exactly the next one. There is another proposal that is coming up for ABC author. So the number is 6575. If we can probably take a look there, I think both are kind of interrelated, and it's also suggesting of an intermediary EIP role here. Not exactly what bot would be doing, but kind of a role that can be useful if they are not completely editor. I'm sorry if I have mixed two things. Please correct me over here.
Stopgap. Is this am I muted or not? Is this really needed? I thought GitHub already made it possible for any given EIP to market that any particular person's approval was needed to move it forward in the system.
So unfortunately, only people with write access to the repository can be requested as reviewers. So that's what, so the EIPIP review bot kind of handles that for us. Yeah, it's dumb. You can't like you can't request Greg as a reviewer because I don't think you have right access to the repository.
No, that's
Yes.
that's a sore point, but that's a different one.
Yeah, that'd be great if we could do that, but we kind of work around it. But
My
I think
right access was taken away accidentally, then was never given back. Which actually sort of demotivated me from
I completely understand that. Yeah.
it's pretty
All right.
frustrating when I can't get, when something's broken, then I have to wait a day or two for some other editor to, will you please force this in? Anyway, I'm still
Maybe
not sure. It still takes one of us with right permission to finally get things like from one from one stage to the next. So does this need to be so formalized?
maybe
it
we can wait. We can wait for the proposer to provide more context of the proposal. I see a comment from a couple of editors saying like what this exactly would look like and what is the proposal. Sorry, Greg, if I interrupted, please go ahead.
Oh, no problem. Okay, so it sounds like there's just technical issues with how the GitHub process works, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, probably Panda is looking into a lot of changes around bots. So yeah, it's related to GitHub processes, my understanding as well.
So the important thing is just making it possible to get reviewers for particular proposals in. So we don't have to be trying to bringing in more editors in general, when for any given ERC, there might be very few people who are actually interested. And for any given person who might want to edit, there might be very few ERCs that they're actually interested in.
Right. All right, moving ahead with the next one, which is upgrade to mend renovate from Dependbot. I already see some comments here from one of the editor. The proposal here is to allow opening PRs to upgrade CI components and provide some more information on what changed. Anyone particularly have strong opinion about it? Looks like it's another enhancement proposal.
Yeah, these are just technical bot changes, so I don't think most of the editors will care.
No.
Yeah. I mean, it's good that these issues are mentioned here, and we are also bringing it up in the meeting. So people who may have concern, who may have thoughts, or maybe even some suggestions for a better enhancement, they can come forward and probably add their thoughts here. So yeah, I think it's a good one that it is being created as an issue to be discussed in the meeting. All right, moving on to the next section, discussion continued from the earlier meeting. Okay, in the last meeting, we discussed about RSS feed. Looks like a lot of conversation happened after that. And currently, when I checked last, it was approved by Panda. I wonder any editor has any strong opinion on this one, or can we go ahead and merge this PR?
Seems fine.
No objections.
All right, I think, I don't know, Sam, Matt, either of you can maybe able to merge it. Like whenever you get a chance, it's not needed to be done right now yet. If you don't have objection on that.
I have a question I didn't ask, like, can we, what happens to Greg's right access? Who's the right person to talk to give to fix that?
It doesn't matter anymore. Not immediately, but over the next month or so, I'll probably need to be backing out of this because a startup I've been working on has gotten funding, and my life.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
I was talking to Pooja before we came on. It's a project involving a dam in Paraguay. It's the second biggest hydro facility in the world, and it makes more electricity than anybody knows what to do with. And so we're probably going to use the Ethereum blockchain plus some new blockchain-like technology we've invented to set up a computational marketplace to usefully suck up that power, because their legislature doesn't want the power used for Bitcoin mining. It's going to be really cool, but you know how startups go. It's basically going to be every waking hour for quite a while.
Well, congratulations, Greg. And just to answer Victor's question, Victor, I think this is the access is distributed whenever editor needs that. That is there. Whoever is actively editing, they have these accesses. So probably it's better managed right now. And as Greg mentioned, that he's totally fine with it. So yeah, I think we can move on. The next one here is again, the contributor, he cannot join the meeting because he lives in Australia. He said that unfortunately it's not possible for me to join, but he requested to take a look at comment 6575, and he is keen to give this a trial ERC editor run. I wonder what people think about this proposal.
I'm generally in favor.
I'm fine with doing a trial period, getting them to do like maybe let's say 30 days of editing, and then when they run into other editors, just get them to note the comments, make sure they're doing good work, and then if they are, then we can add them as an editor.
I mean, generally speaking, I don't think so, but just curious. To do this trial period, other than notification that he or she is engaged in this trial editing, does the individual need any kind of special permission, access, or anything in general?
Nope, just leave comments as if you were an editor, and that's about it.
All right. So
What's our, so I think the app, that's the name, I guess, mentioned that he's only interested in signing numbers and not kind of generally editing the content. Is that the case, or do I understand correctly?
I think we talked about it at the last call, that if all he wants to do is assign numbers, that it's not really something that we would be open to accepting right now. But if he wants to generally edit and it's only like 30 minutes, an hour a week, then that's something that we would be interested in trialing.
He said about 30 minutes a day,
A day.
and could do number assignment, guidance on how to comply with the automation, typos, but not technical stuff, which sounds
reasonable.
Right. Yeah, that's what I thought I read.
Yeah, generally you can start editing and then peer review feedback, and I would love to see the work and work more with him to be able to comment on this as from the reviewing side.
Right.
And yeah, it's not, I don't think we need a official kind of trial kind of thing. We should promote a idea that anyone can come in and provide review help or provide editorial support. This should not be felt like they have to ask for permission for us to do that. So long as they are providing useful feedback, they can always contribute that. And then, yeah, so I don't think they actually need any program or approval from this group. And then obviously it's our job to kind of identify those who are doing really good and active, and to invite them onto the editor groups, and to be an official and bear some duty after, like responsibility afterwards.
Generally, I agree what you're suggesting here, Victor. Like anybody can do these things, but I really appreciate this individual notifying us, because when someone is making a special notification of that, then there are more eyes towards their review comments and everything else. Probably he has in mind, I don't know for sure, like maybe he wanted to be an editor in future, which would be good for us, and having this notification is helpful. But definitely it is open for anyone to come and provide feedback.
Yep.
So, all right, I think from this meeting, we can obviously communicate it to the individual that he should be good to go. And let's start this 30 days trial period from here on. All right,
Sounds
the
good.
next, thank you. The next one here is Ethereum Magician discussion of criteria of advanced EIP status, a strawman proposal. I think we also discussed this in the past, but I guess it was requested again for today's discussion by Victor. Yeah, Victor, we have 10 minutes if we can quickly have a small intro for the past and what changed since then to have it discussed in this meeting.
Yeah, I just want to shed a light on this strawman discussion. Maybe people are not like fully agree, but I just want to kick off some discussion about a question I usually get asked by authors is that what is needed for advancing to the next status of the EIPs, and it's pretty subjective up until this point. And we see people saying like, we need to wait more time, or we need to have more good quality, but like what is or good activities on Ethereum on forums, and I think that it might be helpful for us to kind of formalize what is like, and so that's why I put down this proposal to kick off the discussion, and just want to get a gauge of the temperature in the room and see if it's either something that we could explore, or not in favor at all, or like maybe not so soon and we should discuss it, like come back in 6 months later. Portia, do you have link in that? Can you put it in so it's easier for people to click?
Yeah, I just shared.
So what is the outcome of this thread that you're hoping to see happen?
So the outcome is that we identify the specific need for ERC's interface network and core. Like core already have a very defined way to finalize, right? But what about other things? Do we just let people move it to final? Or can we say that you will have to have its discussion and implementations to move to final? If we want to have any quality control that is not arbitrary by subjective matter in editor's heart, but also a kind of but have a concrete bar of quality control. That's basically the idea. The outcome is
I
that
generally want to avoid concrete bars of quality control, like some rigid guidelines about when things should move. I'd rather it be generally something that we can, just do as we feel is best as editors. But I like having guidelines so that authors can have an idea of what is necessary and what is expected. Like that seems useful, but I wouldn't want to frame this as if you do this, then you're barely over the bar and you get to move to the next level.
I'm in favor of having guideline too, and it's fully okay that this does not become a mandatory thing, but a guideline. Is that a good understanding and good consensus?
I think so.
Cool. Then the next step is what type of guidelines that we think, and this one is why a strawman discussion, strawman proposal to see if you have suggestions to advise to change.
So I think my biggest problem with this particular proposal is that we can't really verify that implementations are independent, right? So I don't
That's
think that's
true.
like the author could just make 3 accounts, implement it 3 times, and then there you go, it's done. And setting barriers like that doesn't really help very much.
That's true. That's totally true. And then I think that's why I felt that Matt's comments on let's make it a guideline, not just like this is how you do and then you advance. So we can still give them like visually, or we should still review them anyway, right? But I'm in favor of if you don't have implementations, like it's not useful. Like I think last call or finals should pretty much kind of have guideline that you should at least have yourself and then one other, which we might not be able to verify, but at least implementations. Like we both agree that it's possible to do CBO attack by creating implementation by themselves, multiple ones. But if I'm not clear is that I think that if no implementation or no 2 implementations, that is not seen a good use of a good place for a standard to be in.
Yeah, like I think if we had a guideline like that, I would have a much easier time telling people, no, you can't standardize this because you have no one interested in it. And like, I would like to do that more often. I'm just not entirely sure that this is a strong enough like rule to stand those decisions on. But yeah, we can definitely talk about it some more. Just remind me to take a look on Discord at some point, and I'll write up my thoughts on it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
I think the conclusion is in favor of continue the discussion and creating a guideline, content to be decided. Is that an understanding?
I think so, yeah.
Cool.
All right, let's move on. I just wanted to make a quick mention of this PR 6575. I think that needs to be merged. This is already in proposal form to just get that editor added. And we have like 3-4 minutes left. I don't know, Jose, if you would like to quickly give an update about the issue that is mentioned here. Do we have any progress, or we have merged it? Where we are at.
Hi, thank you. Now, just to remind Sam, whenever you have the time, Mr. Sam, just take a look on the PR. That's it.
Yeah, of course. It looks like it's still failing CI. But yeah, I can take another look.
All right, and that's great. Thank you. And I think that's mostly all except for this EIPS Insight. For EIPS Insight, I have added all details in the HackMD, as well as the website is showing all correct data. We do have 5 final EIPs. There are 8 proposals in last call, 4 in review, and there are 21 stagnant proposals, and 9 proposals are added as draft. Please take a look on either on the website or on the HackMD to follow the details. Proposals in last call. If you have any thoughts on those proposals, please go ahead and make sure that you add your comment in the discussion thread, so author can maybe take a look before it is moved towards a final PR. So that's all for today's discussion. And I know many people have to jump off this call for the next meeting. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Hope to see you again in 2 weeks at 1400 UTC. Have a good one, everyone.
Thanks, Pedro.
Thanks.